Smash Bros was a huge part of my childhood, as was Skylanders. So in this video, I'm going to be combining pretty much two of my favorite childhood games together, as I'll be discussing the Skylanders that I think would work the absolute best in Smash Bros. Now the obvious choices are Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, but really I don't think it's worth talking about them in this video. If they were to make it into Smash, which obviously they're the most realistic ones that could make it into Smash Bros, it would probably be with their original designs and not the redesigns they got for the Skylanders series. In addition, as far as picking the Skylanders for this video and the ones that I would want in Smash Bros, it's not just going to be based on personal preference and which ones I like the most. It's also not going to be on which Skylanders are the most iconic and I think have the biggest chance of making it in. It's going to be the ones that I think taking designs of their movesets and just how they play overall and putting that into Smash Bros, which ones could be implemented the best. I'm going to be doing one per game. I think that's the best way to do it. So without further ado, let's get started with the Skylander from Spyro's Adventure. So for Spyro's Adventure, my pick is actually rather interesting because obviously I'm not picking Spyro, as I just stated, and I wanted to pick one that has more of an interesting design and isn't too bland, because a lot of the Spyro's Adventure Skylanders, because they are, obviously all the first ones, they have blander, more basic designs than what we see with later games. So I wanted to pick something very unique and interesting, and so I decided on Voodoo because I think he would work really well, and he has a very interesting and complex moveset, especially for the first game. I mean, his main weapon is an axe, basically as a chain, and he can use it to grab onto walls or to enemies and pull himself to them. That could definitely be used as some sort of up B or B special attack. I think that would work really well. He also has electricity based attacks, which I think would just work perfectly as special moves with this guy. And smash attacks, I mean, you can really do anything. He's got an axe, you can swing that at enemies, or you can do some sort of electrical charge type move. I think that would still work really well. And then obviously for his just basic attacks, he can swing his axe around at enemies, or there's a lot of different options with this guy. I just think his moveset is varied enough and there's enough variety with it that it feels very different from anyone else really having Smash Brothers. And I like the electricity aspects of it too. I think that could be implemented in a very cool way. His recovery could be him, attaching his axe to the ledge and climbing up that way. His B attacks, he could shoot some sort of lightning, or he could create those sort of traps that he sets up. I think there's a lot that you could work with Voodoo, so he is who I want from Spyro's Adventure. Now for Giants, obviously we have a much smaller roster to work with, but one that I ended up picking is going to be Eyebrow. I know that a lot of you guys are going to be happy. I think Eyebrow would work really well. I think he'd be a heavy, which would be a lot of fun to play around with. Obviously he can kind of give like Bowser or King K. Rool kind of vibes from someone like Eyebrow. I think using his eye laser would be really cool, whether you want to keep his eyeball in his head or not, or if you want him to be able to throw it at enemies, or him to be able to throw it out and it's sort of like a deployable item or something. There's a lot you could do with that. I also think the combos that he uses are kind of overlooked, but you could totally do a lot with those to give him some sort of ranged or grab options, as well as a way for him to climb up ledges if he falls off. Like that could be some sort of recovery for him, since he doesn't really have much else he could use other than his wings. He does have a small pair of wings that maybe he could use as a recovery. Maybe his eyeball flies up and holds onto the ledge for him. I'm not really sure. And also he, as a heavy, he would just be super fun, but we don't really have any like big heavy brawlers other than maybe someone like Donkey Kong in Smash Bros. So I think Eyebrow would actually work really well, and I think a lot of people would really like him. He's also just a well-perceived Skylander overall, and I think he'd be really cool to have in Smash Bros, and his design would fit very well. I think the Eyebrow is definitely a really good option as far as Giants goes. Now next up is Swap Force. This is where the rosters start getting very diverse and we have a lot to work with, but the one that I wanted the most is actually going to be Washbuckler. I know I said I don't want any like icon Skylanders, but it's not because I don't want them, it's because I'm basing this list around who would work well and not just how iconic Skylanders are. But Washbuckler, surprisingly, I think he would work really well. There's a lot you can do with his tentacles. His tentacles can be used in so many different ways, as far as, he can have B attacks or recoveries or spinning attacks or smash attacks that all utilize them. His recovery, he could definitely fling a tentacle up and hold onto the ledge, something like that, or he can, shoot ink out and boost up into the sky. That's another thing that I haven't even mentioned, is that his ink attacks would be really cool. I mean, we see ink with the Inklings from Splatoon, obviously, but this would be pretty different from that. Also, his two weapons, he has a sword and he has a gun, so there's a lot you can do with that. Obviously, his primary B, stationary, you just press it. Neutral B, he could probably shoot one of his piranhas out or shoot a bubble out. Smash attacks, there's tons of different sword attacks that he can use, and those would obviously work really well. We see it with characters like, Link or Roy or whatever, so that would work really well, I think. And then, obviously, the tentacles, again, you could use these for plenty of different attacks. His basic A attack could just be smacking at enemies with his tentacles or smacking them with his sword. So there's a lot you can really do with Washbuckler, and that's why I picked him. Also, his grab ability I think would be really cool if he like grabs onto enemies with his tentacles. So Washbuckler is who I picked for Swap Force. Now looking at Trap Team, I know a lot of people are going to be happy about this one because normally I don't say much positive about this guy, but I'm going to be picking Nightlight. I just think Nightlight would be super cool. We don't really have any big characters that wield a sword and have massive wings like he does. Obviously, I think it'd be cool to have one of these Skylanders be able to fly, and Nightlight's definitely going to be it. He's going to be able to fly all over the map, and then just drop down and swing his massive sword around. Obviously, when I think of smash attacks, so his would work like, I instantly think of someone like Ganondorf, where he can just like obliterate enemies completely off the screen. I think that would be absolutely awesome. And his B attacks, his special attacks, can definitely be some sort of light-based attacks. We see this as he's able to shoot light up out of the ground. It'd be also interesting to see him like throw his sword. I'm just thinking of that. I think that would be a really cool idea. It's something that could definitely work, especially considering the design of his sword and how it's sort of curved. It could probably work like a boomerang if they really wanted to do something like that. And then he just fits the Smash format. I mean, when you put Nightlight with all the Smash Bros characters, I feel like he would look so cool and just represent what Skylanders is so well. Just this cool franchise with super unique characters. And then putting Nightlight in, obviously it isn't too far-fetched considering how, I mean, you look at the entire Smash Bros roster and like half of them are just sword characters from Fire Emblem. So I think Nightlight would honestly fit in pretty well. I don't know if he'd be heavy or like medium weight because he can really kind of be either, but either way I think he'd be absolutely awesome to use, and maybe perhaps mobile, or he could be a bit tankier. I wouldn't really mind. Either way, I'd definitely play as Nightlight, so he's going to be my pick for a Trap Team. Now with Superchargers, I just knew instantly it had to be Spitfire. This is definitely, I would say, my favorite Supercharger. Spitfire is absolutely awesome, and I think his entire moveset could just move over to Smash Bros very well. His B attacks, there's so much you can do with the fire element. He could throw fireballs, he could shoot streams of fire. Obviously, he already has his fire tornadoes that he can 100% utilize. I think that would work very well. His, B attacks could, yeah, that's pretty much all of what the fire would probably be used for. His primary attack, his basic attack would probably just be him throwing punches and stuff. But he could also implement his speed. Something that's very notable about him is that he uses speed in a lot of his attacks. So maybe he could fly through the air for his up B, or his side B could be a dash across the entire battlefield. That would be super cool, and I would love to see that. Or if really any concept like that. Maybe his down B is he creates one of those fire tornadoes. I think that would work super well. If it actually targets enemies, I'm not totally sure how that would work, but I think that they would definitely figure it out and it would work really well. And just the way that he plays in Skylanders with his basic punches, I think can be moved over very easily to Smash Bros and just have a basic combo of punches, and then his smash attacks you could do really anything with. I think utilizing his wings in some way would be kind of cool because they really are kind of completely glossed over in the games. I don't think he should be able to fly, but I think he should be able to use them in some way, shape, or form, whether it's smash attacks or B attacks or whatever. Using his wings to shoot fire or smash enemies completely off the stage would be awesome. So Spitfire is definitely my pick for Superchargers. Now in Imaginators, this might be one that I don't know if a lot of people are going to see immediately, and this is definitely a more obscure and I would argue forgotten Skylander, and that's going to be Pit Boss. Pit Boss I think would work really well though, because he has a design and weapon that could be implemented pretty easily, then pretty basically, where smash attacks are just smashing his staff into enemies and then they fly off the stage. That already sounds cool on its own. But then, I mean, you implement all the snake elements for his B attacks, where he can shoot snakes out. If he can shoot snakes at enemies, that's a great ranged attack. Or, he can create those snake pits that trap enemies, or use, some sort of grab where he puts his staff around enemies, or uses his snake tail around enemies. This would be super cool. And this is not even looking at the fact that this guy can turn into a giant snake, which is so cool, and I definitely want to see this. I mean, this guy is an up B being able to, shoot into this giant snake and crawl your way out, slither all the way onto the battlefield. That sounds super awesome. I totally love to see that with someone like Pit Boss, and I think this guy would just work really well. I think he's not given enough love, and putting him in Smash Bros, my bad, would definitely be a way to show this guy some love. And smash attacks, he could really do anything, whether it's a giant whip with his snake tail, or whether it's just smacking his staff into enemies. There's so much you could do. So I think Pit Boss would honestly work really well. You could definitely argue for a lot of the senses from Imaginators, but I'm definitely going with Pit Boss. So that is my pick for Imaginators. Alright, thank you guys for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was pretty fun to make, and please be sure to let me know who you guys would pick for Smash Bros. Because there's so many Skylanders, obviously. There's like a million options you could choose from. So if you want to base it on anything, really, I'm open to all suggestions. I think it would be very cool to look at. So let me know, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, like, subscribe, you know, all that stuff. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.